No, you turn your mic off, I think, or something. Hey, guys. Oh, he
Yeah,
muted himself on
I knew
purpose.
it was coming.
So, welcome to FF Uncensored. We are here today to talk about
How to get back into routine when you've been on a break. Right? We're ending summer here for most people, especially where I live. They are going back to school next week.
Oh, we're already back in school.
So that's the official end of summer for us. And summer has this a tendency to be free and fun and barbecues and drinks and all of that fun stuff. And we have a tendency to fall out of a little bit of routine. And it's time to get back into a routine.
Yep.
So also one of the reasons why we run a challenge every fall to help people kind of like just dial in. Sometimes it's easier to just like rip the Band-Aid off and get back into it and just get back on track early rather than waiting till Monday, right? So,
Yep.
So we have the challenge that comes up for that, but we'll probably be announcing that in the next week or two.
We are already announcing it.
We're already announcing it.
So on Trevor's page for Functional Fitness, Aaron just did a giveaway put the announcement out that you guys are dropping off your challenge boxes that people can put off on local stuff. I've already done a free challenge giveaway for someone when I hit my 1 year anniversary. So we are already talking about back to school challenge. So we'll at least give you the start date. The challenge is going to kick off Sunday, September 15th, but we'll open registration September 2nd.
So,
which is Labor Day.
A couple weeks away for actual registration. But if you want to learn more about it, it's all over the internets. And if you are in the Redwood area, right, stop at one of the local businesses, store your name in the raffle, and we'll see if you win a free one. It's kind of a fun way to get you guys out into different businesses and also potentially win a nice little jump start. So,
yeah.
All right. So I've been on a break for a while. That's just hypothetical. I worked out this morning already. So I'm not on a break right now. But I've been on a break for a little while, and I want to get back into things. Well, how do you coach me up? What are some of the questions? What are some of the thoughts? How do you go about helping someone get back into routine?
So the first is, why do you want to get back in your routine? Like, why are we doing anything? And then what did your routine look like previously? Like, what were you doing? What made it successful? And then why did you stop doing it? Because maybe you were doing your routine and then you stopped because it stopped being convenient. So now we have to look at changes between them. So those would be kind of my two, like, why did you stop? Why do you want to get back into it? And then, like, what did it look like? I need to know all of those things to help you come up with a new plan. Like, really, most of the time when I'm coaching, it's less about like, okay, this is what you should do, and more about like, what can you do? Because I have lots of grander ideas. And what if, training 4 days a week isn't going to work for you, and you really only need 2 to start to get you back into the routine? Like, everybody's different, and it's okay to have those. Like, really, if you started training 2 times a week and you hit it all the time, like, you'd be in a good spot in the end of the year.
Right. And that's, one of the reasons why we talk constantly about this idea of a dial, right? It's easier to dial things up and dial things down than put it to 0, right? But then a lot of people like to come back and now they want to put it to a 10. But honestly, probably first and foremost, your body isn't ready for a 10, right? And so the mistake I see a lot of people make when they get back into it is they think they're in the same place that they left, right? And so that is just not the case. You are not in the same place that you left. You are well behind that. And so, let's get in, let's move a little bit. Let's not try and break any records. Let's get a couple sets in. Let's not go like sets of 5. Or else you are not going to be able to walk for a long time. And so, if you're a runner and you're now getting back into running, we're not starting at 8 to 10 miles. We're going out for an easy 2-miler type of thing, and we're going to start working back into it.
Or a walk run too. Like, depending on how long it's been, it might be a walk run, or just going out for 20 minutes and seeing what you can do. Like, it doesn't have to be this is where I was, this is what I need to do tomorrow.
The one nice thing, if we are using more cardiovascular type training, is using a heart rate monitor will be a nice tool to keep your intensity appropriate. Because as you get deconditioned, When we come back, your heart rate's probably going to be a little bit higher at a lower intensity because you haven't really conditioned the body yet to be able to work at a higher intensity with a lower heart rate. And so watching your heart rate and just keeping that under control and not letting yourself jump up into the 80s and 90s and, starting with mid 70s if you are looking at zones, that kind of thing, can be a good place to just start getting back into things. But the other thing we want to think about, especially when we're dealing with like cyclical type exercises, is if we've been standing around for a long time and not really doing anything, a lot of sitting, we need to recondition tendons and ligaments and all of that kind of stuff to start taking on some of the load. And so the mistake a lot of people make is they just get back into a ton of maybe mileage, and then we get chronic use stuff because their feet hurt, their Achilles hurt, their this and that hurts because they just their tendons took on too much too quick, right? Their ligaments took on too much too quick. And so that's why typically when we're bringing clients back, we're not doing like sets of 5 reps. Like they're doing 10s, 12s, maybe even 15s, because we're starting to build back tendon ligament capacity. And we don't want super heavy loads at this point. We want lots of reps with the movement, really good quality movement, to start building back that capacity in those supporting structures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like you really covered a lot there.
I was kind of all over the place, but that's probably the biggest thing I worry about as a coach. If you're coming back from a long hiatus, is not doing too much too soon and causing an injury, because we're going to be the most vulnerable right away. And especially if you have this in your brain, right, of like the person I used to be, that can be problematic.
And I would say this is even more problematic when you're coming back. Like your hiatus was because of an injury, and now you're coming back to training because we don't want to, one, re-injure that same thing, or we don't want to see any compensation patterns and find something else is now hurting because we started too heavy and you compensated, your left knee was bothering you, and now your right hip hurts. So like it's also like picking like this exercise to help you strengthen that, so we stay out of that compensation. We don't make something else a new issue too. So when you have a client come back, you don't ever start at 8s?
Maybe 8s. I don't know. We usually tend to be higher on a rep range. So many times it depends on the exercise, right?
Okay.
Like I'm not a huge fan of deadlifts for really high repetitions. Like I don't probably want someone deadlifting for 15 unless they're really experienced, right? Just because we're going to have breakdowns in the system and that kind of stuff. But I may have someone do a hip raise for 15, right? Because that's, lower complexity, harder to screw up. You can't quite load it as heavy typically. And like having someone lunge for 15, maybe not, right?
And that's really more where I was thinking, like I do, a lot of my clients that come back, or just even new clients that start training and like this is going to be a newer experience, things like lunges and step ups, I'm probably going to be in the more the 8 range, and we might only be doing 3 sets of 8, which can still be a ton of volume, and you can get very sore if you haven't been doing them for 6, 8, 12 weeks, or especially if you've never done them before.
Yeah, if you ever want to make someone sore, make them do a bunch of lunges.
No, step ups. I don't get sore doing lunges. Step ups is my exercise.
You just step ups. It depends. Like, are you doing good step ups, or are you doing just like falling to the ground? So if you're doing a good step up where we're controlling the eccentric, right? Like most people will just step up and then they'll kind of like flop back to the ground and then they'll step up. We're not going to get as much soreness because we don't have much of an eccentric component to it. But if you're like doing like a good step up, really loading the foot, right, driving through the box, standing up, getting good finish, glute engagement at the top, and then you're reversing that, controlling 2 to 3 seconds on the way down, and you're not doing like the push off thing with the bottom foot. Like, yeah, I can step up with 100s, yeah, with both legs, but like let's put the focus on the leg that's on the box, right? You might be surprised. You might be surprised how much you can do when. And honestly, one of the things I like with like an exercise like step ups, I know this is kind of taking a little bit of a tangent, but we can increase intensity without necessarily having to increase load, right? Because it's easy just to go higher, right? And then once we get knee above hip crease, so we get to a little bit, what would be below parallel probably for that position, which for most people is pretty high. That might be 18 inches, right? That might be 24 inches for some people. for Ashley, it's probably
I don't even,
6.
I'm like, I don't even think 18 inches. I think 18 inches is going to be more than that for me. I think I only need 16,
So
really.
so once we can do that sufficiently with a body weight, okay, now we've kind of earned, now we've done like full range of motion, right? And now we've kind of earned the right to be able to load. So that's one of the fun things with something like step ups. But I don't know, I usually tend more towards bilateral stuff early on, just because bilateral, both feet on the ground or both hands in connection with something. You're just there's less moving parts, right? And so our goal is just to like provide a stimulus. Like, that's all working out is. It's a stimulus. It's a stimulus to the body to make a change.
Well, and the other thing, the biggest thing about coming back is the intention that you're doing with the exercise. Like, what is the goal of the exercise that you're doing? And like, how are you going to approach it? And like, if you're doing half quality movements and poor range of motion and that kind of stuff, you could, I mean, yeah, you probably can get away with a little bit more weight. But if you go back into exercising with like, can I improve my range of motion? Can I do good quality movements? Your intention, you can start body weight and get really full range of motion for squats or even jungle gym ones, and you can make yourself like feel like you did a big huge workout and you didn't even load yourself, and you might
Right.
have even done them assisted and you still feel like you did.
Right.
So there's a lot of things you can do, that don't even, like you can come back and go body weight and use tempos and some stuff like that that are more advanced techniques for training, but you can use them at the very beginning to really learn how to engage and work through range of motion and that kind of stuff too.
And early on, I mean, usually like phase 1 is like, let's just do some movements. And then phase 2, we start to emphasize that eccentric action. So how do we control the down action, right? How are we controlling against gravity? Like, so if I'm doing a push-up, controlling to the ground. If I'm doing a squat, controlling into the squatting pattern, right? If I'm doing a pull-up, controlling myself down from the bar. And so that helps to also, I call it the brakes. We're really starting to develop the brakes in the system. And so if we think about like our car analogy again, like I don't want the car to go really fast if I don't have the brakes to stop it. And so we develop the brakes to stop it, and then we start increasing the engine to go faster, because like if we don't have brakes, then kind of what's the point? Like then we're just like leading ourselves up to a crash, quote unquote, or an injury, right? And so eccentrics are kind of like the brakes, our ability to, control ourselves against gravity.
So let's bring it back to, you're getting back started. Let's just kind of review the big points that we've gone over. So you're getting back, whether you left for injury, you were sick, or you had just your personal life was doing crazy flip flops or work or whatever it was. Let's go like the top 3 things to focus on getting you back.
Number 1 is to show up. Like I don't care about anything else. Like if you don't show up, nothing, you could have the perfect workout, none of it matters. And so it's like
And
defining the show up and like acting and actually showing up. I don't care if you like just walk in and like do 2 minutes and then walk out. Like that is actually a win.
but be realistic about what that show up's going to be like. So if you got out of your routine, showing up every day is probably not going to be realistic. So like knowing like I fell out because I was trying to do too much or whatever that was, but like realistically, when are you going to do it and show up for it?
To like
All
I
right.
think having some realistic expectations. And then from there, so now once because here's the thing with showing up too, is every time you show up, you're putting a vote in the bucket of I am a person that shows up, right? And you're developing this mindset, you're developing this behavior, you're developing, and really it is a mindset around I'm a person that does what I say I'm going to do. So if I say I'm going, so that's one of the worst things you can do is say you're going to do something, but then don't follow through. You're basically like proving to yourself that you don't follow through on what you say. And the worst person to do that to is yourself.
So this is literally, we like I'm sure we both sent this email out and talking about hitting the snooze button. This is the exact thing you do when you hit the snooze button, and it applies everywhere in your life. Are you a person that hits snooze? Well, the first thing you do every morning is don't do something that you promised that you were going to do to yourself. And now here it is with exercise: is can you show up for the promise that you made to yourself?
The snooze thing just doesn't like it doesn't. I don't get it, because everyone is tired when they wake up. Like that. This is like this is a reality. We're all tired when we wake up, right? Even if you slept for 9 hours, like when you wake up, you're still kind of groggy, right? There's very small portion of the population that's like up and like, let's go. Like everyone's a little bit tired, right? So I think everyone has at least a thought of like, I should hit snooze. But I don't know why people hitting snooze 3 or 4 times in a row, like, why is that a thing? Why don't you just set your alarm to go off 40 minutes later? And now you actually got a better portion of sleep, or you were able to extend your sleep for another 40 minutes. So you got the benefit out of it. When you're hitting snooze, you're not doing anything because we're not falling in, like, you're not getting into
Obviously,
like,
Trevor could have a whole episode on this, so maybe we should go back
we're gonna
to
put
where we were.
snooze in this because it's worth talking about, because it is like, I think we need to be cognizant on how we treat ourselves. And that is like part of it, because all of this is creating the picture of who we are and what type of person we are. Right. So there's that. We'll save that for another day. But
All right. So back to show up. That is step one. And be realistic about showing up. Like put it in your calendar, make sure you can actually do it.
Do all the
You're not
things.
overcommitting yourself. Okay. Next one. Let's just use like cardio. If you're going to start back into cardio routine,
Let's just start
Trevor's
slow.
going to tell you slow and maybe use a tool like a heart rate tracker.
Yeah, let's start slow. Let's use tools if we have those tools available to us, right? But like, just err on doing too little rather than doing too much. So I'd rather have you leave being like, I could have done a bunch more. Cool, we did it right. I don't want you to leave like, I'm absolutely exhausted and I couldn't have done any more. Bad place to be. Okay.
And that's really exactly where we want you to be in the strength world too. We want you to leave feeling better than you did when you came in, and that you could come back tomorrow and do it again.
Right.
Especially when you're getting back into it.
So starting slow, leave lots in the tank, especially for the first couple weeks. Probably leave a bunch in the tank, right? And then you can start to play with probably a little bit of volume, a little more volume. So kind of keeping exercises, that kind of stuff the same. Now let's just maybe add another set into it. Instead of doing 2, let's do 3. Instead of doing 8 reps, maybe we do 10, right? With the same loads. We're just adding a little bit more density to that same time frame, not changing anything up. I think one of the mistakes too many people make is trying to change things up too often. And so we want to do just kind of a little volume tweak, add a little more volume to your weeks. And then again, seeing how you're feeling. Are we recovering properly? How's our sleep? Yada, 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 because all that plays into it. But we always want to have a long-term approach, right? Could I do this for the rest of my life? Could I do these workouts for the rest of my life? Yes, there are going to be some times when we really push hard because we're doing something that we need to push hard for. But the vast majority of our workouts should be like, I could do this forever. Like I could do this week in and week out forever. Cool.
Live
like,
to train another day.
That's about the intensity that we want. But if you're leaving every workout like, oh man, I'm completely exhausted and the rest of your day is screwed because your workout was so hard. Like, are you a professional athlete? Chances are no. And I don't really know what we're doing here. So just some food for thought.
All right. And with that, anything else you got to say today, Trev?
No, that's it. We got too much to say. We'll save it till tomorrow, next week, whenever we do this again.
All right, guys. We will see you next week.